Over my time making these videos, I've discovered a running theme with almost every Family Guy character. They've all gotten worse. Peter went from a dumb but mostly well-meaning dad to a straight-out murderer. Brian has gone from being the voice of reason to a pretentious douchebag. And as explained in my recent Lois video, she's turned into a vindictive passive-aggressive with some major sociopathic tendencies. To put it shortly, they've all been flanderized to the extreme. But some have escaped this fate. Notably and surprisingly, Glenn Quagmire, who went from a sex-crazed pervert to, well, yeah, I guess he is still a sex-crazed pervert, but he's been given more depth in recent seasons. He's no longer just a one-note horn dog, and has quietly and slowly turned into one of the show's most developed characters, amongst all the giggities.
Giggity giggity, giggity goo. Stick around.
So, in this video, I'll be exploring the 20+ years evolution of Glenn Quagmire. Do you remember that episode where Quagmire started using the internet for the first time and was looking up all sorts of questionable stuff? I can guarantee you he definitely wasn't using protection and was probably getting all sorts of crazy viruses. So don't be a Quagmire. Use NordVPN to protect your online information. I've been using NordVPN to shield me from thieves and snoopers while online with its secure encryption. You can also use it to unlock TV shows and movies not available in your country. For example, if you live in the US and wanted to watch The Office but didn't want to pay out for another streaming service, all you have to do is connect to a UK server and now you can watch all of The Office series on Netflix. And if you're not that into The Office, you can also unlock tons of hidden shows, cartoons, and anime. And the other amazing thing is that one NordVPN account will cover you for 6 devices. So to use their service and see if it's a good fit for you, simply go to nordvpn.com/timelines or click the link below to get the 2-year plan with an exclusive deal plus 4 bonus months completely free. And it's also completely risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. His horny beginnings. Like all characters in Family Guy, Quagmire was conceived by Seth MacFarlane, who based the Playboy's distinctive voice on fast-talking radio jockeys from the 1950s.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain, Glenn Quagmire.
And I can only assume he made Quagmire a pilot so he could bang a woman in every single continent. And let me tell you, as a former air hostess for 4 years, pilots can be super creepy. So that definitely checks out.
We've got some very strong headwinds, giggity.
From the start, Quagmire stood out in the show because unlike Cleveland, Peter and Joe who are married, Quagmire was a loud and proud playboy. He was a womanizer who often boasted about his bedroom exploits, once telling his drinking buddies in graphic detail what he did to some homeless twins. His depravity knows no bounds as he will literally hump everything and anything. One of his earliest spotlight episodes was in season 4's Blind Ambition, when Lois caught him spying on her on the toilet.
Would you just sit down and go to the bathroom already?
And because of this incident, the women of Spooner Street wanted him out unless he could change his pervy ways. And he eventually wins them over by unintentionally resuscitating a woman in a changing room.
What the hell's CPR?
In fact, I'll go as far to say that he's one of the most morally reprehensible characters in television history.
Nice try, but I built up an immunity.
So let's run through some of his grossest moments. He's hopped out of several coffins after some presumed questionable activities, kidnaps women and locks them in the trunk of his car. He has a bed that knocks women out and holds them down. He's married and impregnated a giraffe. And that's just the tip of his debauchery.
Giraffity! Yeah, see, that's not mine.
Quagmire's well of grossness goes deep, deep down. Even the show addresses this. When Quagmire asks why he's not getting his own spin-off, Peter straight out says it's because he's a... can't say it on YouTube. But with every show that runs as long as Family Guy, the characters start to develop and move away from their one-note personalities established in their earlier seasons. In turn, the writers slowly evolved Quagmire to avoid being stale and repetitive, which leads us into Quagmire outside of the bedroom. As the show moved into its later seasons, the show's writers began to humanize Quagmire. One such way was showing that he loved cats and adopted a kitten called James, who he absolutely adored.
Ah, you're one of those.
And so showing us his dorky and playful side, and it was a Quagmire we had never seen before, and this softened him into a far more developed character, and a human one. Being a cat person surprisingly became an integral part of his character, as he became somewhat of an expert in all things feline. And most recently, he rescued Meg from the miserable fate of becoming a crazy cat lady by taking her place so she could live her best life. This is because he believed his best years were behind him, and so showed a pretty deep insight into how he views his own lonely bachelor life.
I have nothing. I should be the cat lady.
He even quit his piloting job to open his own cat cafe. This was a job he loved until Brian the buzzkill got it shut down. Making Quagmire a cat person was a stroke of genius by the writers, as it added a whole new layer to his and Brian's rivalry. Quagmire was always a chill, easy breezy guy, so his hatred towards Brian gave him an edge that we had never seen until that point. It was in season 8 when Quagmire officially revealed that he hates Brian. And always eager to be liked, Brian took him out to dinner and asked why, where Quagmire lists all of the many reasons why he finds Brian so insufferable.
You constantly hit on your best friend's wife. The man pays for your food and rescued you from certain death, and this is how you repay him?
Despite calling the dog out on his crush on Lois, Quagmire also lusts after her, regularly sniffing her panties, and even took her out on a date as soon as she and Peter took a trial break, and he even got as far as seducing her into his boudoir. In season 14, he finally confessed his true feelings for her, which naturally caused a rift between him and Peter. But in recent years, the writers moved past this crush and began to really develop Quagmire and Lois's platonic friendship, with Lois helping Quagmire pick up older women by feeding him lines through an earpiece. And in season 20, the most recent one, the writers expanded this even further, with Quagmire accompanying Lois to her high school reunion, where he acts a A-star gentleman and doesn't make a single move on her. So much so, this lack of attention actually upsets Lois.
I didn't make a move on you because you're my best friend's wife.
He expands on this by telling her that she should have brought Peter if she wanted that affection, before boosting her confidence by playfully hitting on her.
And thank you.
Now, we have to take a moment here and admit that this is huge growth for a character who literally admitted to rooting through Lois's trash just to collect her toenails. Speaking of growth, his relationship with Brian also evolved. As mentioned earlier, he teams up with Brian to save Meg from becoming a lonely old cat lady, and Quagmire selflessly paid for Brian's teeth replacement after he face planted into a fire hydrant. But their most dramatic growth came in season 18. After Brian got Quagmire's cat cafe shut down, the two fought in the streets, and it resulted in Quagmire confessing that he worried what his legacy would be when he was gone. He admitted that his cat cafe was his way of putting good into the world after all the bad he's done. And in a super sweet moment, the doggo put his pride behind him and offered to be Quagmire's support animal, and they went on a lovely old walk together. Keep in mind that this was the same dog who he beat up for sleeping with his parent Ida. And if that's not growth, I don't know what is. Speaking of Ida, the show has nicely developed their relationship too. Quagmire had always admired his navy decorated parent, and it came as quite a shock when Ida announced that she was a woman trapped inside a man's body, and that while she was in town, she'll be getting her surgery. At first, Quagmire was completely against this, but when Ida revealed that she'd been miserable hiding her true self, Quagmire apologized.
I'm sorry, Dad. I love you.
I love you too, Glenn.
And Ida has played a pretty interesting character since, being a recurring character, and Quagmire regularly stands up for who she is. Like when Peter pretended he was trans in order to get special privileges, Quagmire called him out.
That's just it, Peter. This whole thing is a joke to you. Are you forgetting I have a dad who's a woman?
He was now becoming more progressive and was building meaningful relationships. I mean, him and Ida are so close now, they are basically attached, and I mean that quite literally, as Quagmire now owns Ida's penis after he lost his own. And I know what you're thinking, how the hell did that happen? Well, in season 16, to the unkindest cut, Quagmire lost his little Quaggy after a shark bit it off. And as his life was pretty much defined by his pee-pee, he goes through an existential crisis. And although he got a new replacement at the end of the episode thanks to Ida, it does cause him unbelievable pain when he pees.
That's the sound of peeing out your daddy's wiener.
In my mind, I always saw this episode as the writer's way of giving Quagmire some sort of karma after everything he's done. I say this because in the same year this was released, the writers announced that Quagmire was finally going to get called out on his treatment of women in an upcoming episode with epic proportions. Quagmire's Me Too moment. So, how do you deal with a character like Quagmire in the Me Too era? I mean, his entire personality is based on being a predator. Well, at the 2018 San Diego Comic-Con, Family Guy showrunner Richard Apple teased us that they'll be tackling the topic of Me Too directly. And he said, "We are a year out, so we are writing episodes this month that won't air for a year." So the hashtag Me Too stuff became a cultural force while we were thinking of the next season, and we are taking it head on with an episode on Quagmire. We're trying to be pretty fair about the whole history of the character, Apple said. Seth encouraged us and even took a special interest while we were writing the episode. However, it's been 4 years since then and the episode has yet to air. So, what happened? If I had to take a guess, it would be that they either couldn't nail down the script and so scrapped it, or most likely there was pushback from the studio. Many people forget that the Family Guy friendly House of Mouse technically owns Family Guy. I know this very well because Disney keeps copyright striking my videos. So please subscribe to the channel before this video is also taken down. Anyway, it is possible that Disney execs were nervous over Family Guy's handling of such a sensitive topic and so decided to can it. Family Guy seems to have doubled down and softened Quagmire's more questionable qualities. Whether this was a mandate by Disney or just a natural progression of what the writers were already doing with him. At this point in time, this is unclear, but what is clear is that while his sexuality and perverted grossness continues to be a huge part of his character, it no longer completely defines him. Again, I think it's important to reiterate that Quagmire has disgusting qualities, and I'm not dismissing that. But keep in mind that this is about a cartoon character who's supposed to be creepy. He's definitely not a character that has been written to be looked up to. And let's face it, no one in Family Guy should be. The thing that separates Family Guy as a show is its edge and its dark and offensive humour. But come on, I want to know your thoughts. What's your views on Quagmire? Do you love him? Do you hate him? Do you think he's changed for the better? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.